submitted. We're all using the same survey.
Yeah. Thanks, Ian. We ready, Ian? Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome to the August meeting of the Rehoboth Beach Board of Adjustment. I'll start with the roll call to my left.
William Pearlstein.
Jan Conacy.
Edie Heron.
Mark Saunders.
And I'm Barry Brandt. Everyone's present. And public notice and verification and correspondence. Was the meeting posted and properly posted, the notice and the information?
The agenda was posted in City Hall on August 18th and posted on the city portal the same day. Public notices. Let's see here. Case number 0723-03 for 17 Stokely Street was posted on August 3rd and was sent out from the portal on August 3rd. It was published in the Cape Gazette on August 8th and August 11th, and in the Delaware State News on August 10th and August 11th. Signage was posted on the property. Mailings were sent out to property owner addresses within 200 feet. Case number 0723-04 for the property at 17 Park Avenue was posted in City Hall and on the city portal on August 3rd. The notices were sent to the newspapers and published in the Cape Gazette on August 8th and August 11th, in Delaware State News on August 10th and August 11th. And property signage was posted on the property, and mailings were sent out to property owners within 200 feet. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. And I noticed correspondence. You had a printout. Is that the only correspondence we received for 17?
That I have received.
That you, okay, yeah, I've seen nothing else come through email. Okay. All right, thank you. And do we have any minutes to approve at this meeting?
No, I don't.
Okay, no. All right, and Fred, do we have any notices of prior decisions?
We do have one notice of a prior decision, which has been circulated. I believe it's the Wagner case on re-argument, 40 Park Avenue, I think it was.
Okay, and we've all had a chance to sign it.
Yeah, and
right?
everyone's reviewed it, commented, and it's been signed. I think you could, just for the record, take a motion to approve the issuance of that notice of decision.
Okay, we'll take someone please make a motion on 40 Park.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
And
I wasn't
two
there.
members were absent.
I was absent.
From that hearing, so the record should show that that vote was 3 in favor with 2 absent.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to the cases. So this afternoon, we have 2 cases on the calendar. Both, well, the first case is a variance on lot coverage, and the second case is on side yard setbacks. The board will apply the appropriate quick check factors that Delaware law recognizes as guidance for boards of adjustments. So if we're going to move into case number 1, which is 17 Stokely. Since we are here to discuss, like I said, an area item, under Delaware law, an applicant for an area variance must prove that the requirements create an exceptional practical difficulty. To determine whether an exceptional practical difficulty exists, the board must weigh the following 4 factors, and this is what we'll make our decision upon. The nature of the zone where the property lies. Number 2, the character and use of the immediate vicinity. Number 3, whether removal of the restrictions on the applicant's property would seriously affect neighboring properties and their uses. And finally, whether failure to remove the restriction would create an exceptional practical difficulty for the owner in relation to the owner's efforts to make normal improvements to the property. This standard is satisfied only when the difficulties alleged by the owner are practical rather than theoretical and exceptional rather than routine. Everyone who chooses to speak today will be required to give their testimony under oath. Our counsel, Fred Townsend, will administer the oaths. And we do not have a court reporter here today, so everyone who speaks will be speaking into the microphone. If you wish to speak from the audience, please come up, and we'll go forward from there. If we move away from the microphone, anyone on the board or Ann will stop us and remind us, because Ann has to make the transcripts from the recording. At this point, thank you, Ann. Is there anyone who's going to be speaking from the audience today? Okay, so we will get to you and we'll bring you up and swear you in at that time. Thank you. Okay. And Ann confirmed that property owners within 200 feet were notified. Okay, and when we go through the hearing, we're going to have the city speak, the applicants speak, and then we'll go into public. We will be asking questions, and then at a point where the board is comfortable answering questions, we will close public commentary, and then the board will deliberate on the case, which of course you will all be witness of. So for 17 Stokely, I'm going to ask the city for their presentation.
Barry, can I put on the record? I want to say on the record, Mr. Rosenblum and I were at a conference together sponsored by my firm several months ago. It was prior to the filing of this notice. We did not talk at all about anything to do with his property, the notice, or the operation of the BOA. I'm comfortable that I can participate in this. I have no ongoing other relationship, but I thought I should mention
Okay.
on the record. Thank you.
Thank you for disclosing that. Okay, Corey?
Okay. Corey Shinko, Assistant Building Inspector. This is my report for 17 Stokely, owners Jay and Robin Rosenblum. The nature of the request: the applicant is seeking a variance to City Zoning Code 27021-C lot coverage. The purpose of this application is to allow for the construction of an accessory building for storage purposes. This also affects 27021-A natural area. The property is located at 17 Stokely Street, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, and it is situated in the R1 residential district. The property is listed in Sussex County records as tax map number 334-20.06-14.00. The property is a 50 by 100 lot with an existing primary structure. Application background information. According to city records, a building permit application number 2930 to install a 32 square foot shed on the property was submitted on March 26, 2021. During plan review of application 2930, correspondence between the assistant building inspector and the property owner detailed the zoning violations that would arise if the accessory building was installed on the property, as shown in Exhibit 1. Further correspondence between the assistant building inspector and the property owner indicates that application 2930 was withdrawn on June 2nd, 2021, as shown in Exhibit 2. Submitted documents for the current variance request provide letters from healthcare professionals detailing health factors of Mr. and Mrs. Rosenblum in support of the variances requested. Submitted documents for the current variance request also provide a letter in support of the variances requested. The variances that are to be requested is, again, 27021-A natural area. Per city zoning code, in R1S, R1, and R2 districts, a minimum of 50% of the gross lot area and 50% of the front yard setback area of every building lot shall remain as natural area as defined in 270-4. Zoning code 27021-C, lot coverage in all residential districts, the maximum lot coverage shall not exceed that given in the following table. For districts R1 and R2, you have a maximum lot coverage of 40% with a maximum area of accessory structures, if any, of 10%. Submitted documents for the current variance request provide a survey detailed final as-built survey by Foresight Services dated October 28, 2019, which shows current lot coverage as defined in CROB, City of Rehoboth Beach 270-4, at 1,997 square feet, which is 39.9%, and sidewalks and driveway coverage, which are not defined as structure per City Zoning Code 270-4, at 470 square feet, comprising 9.4%, and natural area at 2,533 square feet, making up 50.7%. The variance requested seeks relief from the minimum 50% natural area requirement as well as the 40% maximum lot coverage requirement. Conclusion, submitted documents for the current variance request provide a survey titled Final As-Built Survey by Foresight Services dated October 28th, 2019, which provides current lot coverage for 17 Stokely Street. The installation of a 32-square-foot shed as requested by this variance will violate Rehoboth Beach Zoning Code Sections 27021A and 27021-C.
Thank you. You want to ask questions of Corey now, or you want to proceed?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Corey, I think there might be a mathematical mistake on page 5 here, which you just read under conclusion. You're saying the installation of a 32-square-foot shed, but everything I read says that's not the dimension of the shed that they're asking for. Aren't they asking 6 by 8, which is 48 square feet, correct? I think
Yes, my
30
apologies. That would be
32 square feet was what they had asked for, I believe, in the original.
was in the original.
Yes, sir.
Let me restate
Sure.
that as
Take your
48
time.
square feet.
Take your time. Let's make sure we have the math right.
I want to follow up Edie's question when Corey.
Take your time,
Yeah.
Ms. Corey. There's no hurry here. We all want to hear everything.
And that's information you can confirm with the owner, of course.
Yes, we'll confirm with the owner. But everything that I saw in the other information was about 6 by 8, which would be 48 square feet.
Certainly what the applicant
Yeah.
wants.
That's what the applicant stated. And
That
that's
is
what the-
correct. That was, let me amend that by striking 32 feet and putting 48 square feet.
Okay, and a follow-up to that, Corey. I noticed that there's an 8 by 10 stone pad underneath, proposed underneath the shed. The stone constitutes structure in the city, right? It's not grass.
Correct.
So it's
Right.
the coverage, the
right.
natural area is really 80 square feet.
If the stone foundation, underneath would be placed there, yes, that would be 80 square feet.
We would be talking 80, not 48. Okay. So the building, the structure is, the shed's 48, but the coverage on the land is 80.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And just also to clarify with you, I believe it would be with you, as of right now, the natural area coverage is already over 50%. Is that correct? 50.7%, they're already 33 square feet over.
The natural area would have to be a minimum of 50%. So if they're over 50%, the further over they are from 50%, I think the better, the more green space they have for natural area.
Okay.
The more compliant they are.
So
Correct.
Okay. And with maximum lot coverage, they're 39.9% of a 40.0%
As
that they
as
were-
the lot currently
as the
exists.
current, as was built
Yes,
just a
ma'am.
few years ago, So, and there, and so, okay, I think you've answered that with Barry's addendum. I had that other question about the
And we may come back to you.
the
with-
footprint.
Yeah.
I had the
Anyone
foot-
else? Mark?
Just one quick, and I assume the FAR is not involved in this. In other words, the house is small enough.
If the shed has a wall height of 6 foot 6 inches or less, FAR would not be calculated.
Okay, Bill or Jan, any questions? Okay, let's move on then to the presentation from the applicants. Please come up. And we will administer, or Fred will administer the oath.
So we just begin with a name and address, and then I'll ask you to swear the oath.
Certainly. J. Rosenblum, 17 Stokely Street, Rehoboth Beach.
Sir, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
You can proceed.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to appear before you today. My wife, Robin, and I are here to request a variance from the code's lot coverage restrictions so that we can add a small 6 by 8 foot shed to our property. Let me just explain. The withdrawn permit that we submitted was for a smaller shed. It was withdrawn, of course. But then when we shopped around for a shed this time around, I couldn't find that size shed. I think there must be a supply chain issue or something. So the smallest one I was able to find was 6 by 8 foot shed. And as for the 8 by 10 pad, I didn't realize that, and I apologize. Okay. We would, of course, make sure that the pad conforms to whatever the code restrictions are. Okay. So because we don't currently have a shed, we are required to keep bicycles, our lawnmower, and other lawn equipment in our basement. When we want to use them, we need to carry them upstairs, up a steep, narrow exterior steps leading from the basement to our backyard. It's extremely difficult for us because we both have documented medical conditions that make it hard to carry heavy items up and down stairs. Robin, my wife, suffers from several medical conditions. She has long-term back, neck, and bilateral arm pain, tendinitis, and she suffers from chronic foot and ankle conditions. I suffer from similar medical conditions that are exacerbated by carrying heavy objects. In my case, I played a lot of contact sports, high school and college, football, lacrosse, rugby, and I suffered multiple foot and ankle sprains as well as neck and back issues. After college, I jogged for about 20 years, but now at age 57, I'm paying the price, and I suffer from chronic tendinitis, foot and ankle issues, and back and neck pain that have made me unable to run for the past several years. Considering our physical limitations, our medical providers have suggested biking as a suitable form of exercise. But the practical difficulty of carrying bicycles up from our basement when we want to exercise deters us from doing so and results in a hardship. Our application is accompanied by letters from our medical providers testifying to our conditions and requesting accommodations. In closing, I'd point out that our variance requests meets the criteria that the city has laid out. First, placing a shed in our backyard will not change the character of our neighborhood. Our block is residential, and numerous neighbors on our street abutting our house have accessory buildings on their properties. Second, installing a shed will not negatively impact adjacent or other properties on our street. We have deliberately chosen the smallest size shed possible that we could find that would meet our needs. The shed would be used for storage only. It would not have plumbing or electricity. And we have a 6-foot-high fence in our backyard, so the shed will not be obvious from the street or from our neighbors' properties. In fact, in our packet is a letter from our adjacent neighbor closest to the proposed location supporting our request. Third, as I've laid out here, my wife and I suffer from physical limitations documented by our physicians that present exceptional practical difficulties that the variance process is intended to remedy. And then finally, as we suggest in our letter, because the variance request is specific to our personal hardship conditions, granting it would not set a permanent precedent. We would be willing to stipulate that approval is contingent on our continued ownership of the property and agree to take down the shed if the property is sold. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you. So and let me address your last point. When we approve something, it stays with the land, not with the owner. So if whatever we approve as a board typically carries on forever, so it doesn't matter who the owners are. So I don't think thank you for that offer, but I don't think we take that in.
Harry,
So
can I
open up
add to
for
that?
questions.
I believe it's owned by an LLC anyhow. Right?
No.
Isn't it?
It was sold by an LLC.
Oh, that's how it was, okay.
But we're not an
That would
LLC.
have just added to what Barry said.
Okay.
Right.
Anyone want to start with questions?
I just have a question right
Yes.
now. In this picture, is that your outdoor shower?
No, that's the back, that's our neighbors. I was
That's your
showing you the
neighbors.
adjacent properties. They have a
Okay.
shed and a shed and a shower out there.
Okay, thank you.
How tall is this shed going to be if you are given the variance?
I believe it's 6 feet tall. If we look at the
I'm looking at the,
cut sheet.
So let me clarify that, though. So you're saying it's 6 foot, and Corey, that does not register against FAR if it's under 6'6"? So the FAR issue is not an issue, is what I'm hearing, if the height of this is, let's
where-
get that
where do we-
clarified.
Where do we see that on this you're talking about, sorry, you're talking about Capitol Building Shed Outlet? right?
Yes.
I'm
I believe that is correct.
looking for it, maybe I'm missing it, and I can use your help, please, in finding
I'm
it.
sorry, standard wall height is 6'7".
Is that up to the peak of the roof?
Yeah, that's,
That would be correct. What we would do in that case would be to do a red line and make sure that the wall height is 6'6" rather than
Oh,
6'7".
so you're okay if the peak,
So the peak of the roof, it only goes by the definition of accessory building in our 270-4 code, which is 12 feet from center line of road.
okay,
So there would not be an elevation noncompliance.
issue, and if the wall height is 6 foot, then the FAR is not affected.
That's
So-
correct.
So we don't need a variance on the FAR.
but the wall height here says 6'7", 5-pitch roof.
This here shows that the walls are standard with 2x4s, 16 inches on center, and the standard wall height is 6'7" with a 512 pitch roof.
So it does affect the FAR.
This proposal would show that this, if using the standard walls,
Right.
there would be a FAR calculation needing to be made.
Yeah, so are you aware of that, sir? That,
I am not.
okay.
It'd be 2 variances, is what, essentially.
That's what we are here for
That's
2
my
variances, yeah,
Oh, for FAR and for,
correct.
well, oh, okay, I thought it
There's
was
one
just.
thing I would make as a point of clarity. This is a proposal, and it's using the word standard wall height. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily the shed that they intend to, but this is a general term used in a proposal, I'm assuming from the Capitol Building Shed Outlet, that their standard wall height would be 6'7".
And I do stand corrected, we're only here for 1 variance, lot coverage.
saying,
Yeah,
I'm-
my mistake.
That's all right.
Does it make sense to proceed if we don't know whether there's going to be a FAR?
Exactly.
Yeah,
but I'm not Exactly. sure
of.
I think we can weigh in on that. The variance they've requested is the one variance from coverage and, coverage, right? I'm sorry. They're going to come in with a shed that's either 6'6" or less, and we'll issue a building permit to the extent that you grant the variance. If they come in with a 6'7", then we'll require they come back to the Board of Adjustment.
Okay.
So our presumption is, based upon what the building official is saying, is that 6'7" is just what they put in their standard bid, and they'll probably do something lower to meet our code requirement.
Thanks for clarifying that.
I would add to that answer, similar with the pad, that whatever, if there was a variance granted, the pad we would make
Comply
sure
to
that a
that.
pad, if there was a pad, would be in compliance.
Okay, thank you. Other questions, Jan?
With the clarifications on Edie's question, what is the actual request now in terms of the percentage coverage?
So is that from Corey to calculate?
Because you had it at 32, whatever it is, and it's actually 48. So
That's correct.
do we know, and maybe Mr. Rosenblum knows what?
I did some math, if it's correct. So they're already at,
Should we swear you in, Edie?
you can try, well, somebody, feel free to check, I'm a math girl. So they already have 1,997 square feet. And if they add 48 square feet, they're at 2,045 square feet. That's what they requested. But we were still wondering if there's going to be 80 square feet, but the gentleman said that his pad would match, so we'll presume at this statement that it's not. So then that would be 45 square feet over, and I get 40.9%. It would be at 40.9 rather than with a maximum, we're dealing with a maximum of 40, and they're saying that it would be 40.9 if the pad also matched.
That's consistent with Mr. Rosenblum's letter.
Yes.
Yeah, in the letter.
But I have a question. Were you finished, Bill? Please
We
continue.
can come back to, you know,
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay, well, now I'm coming back to the building inspector's letter here. The variance requested, I'm on page 5 of our original handouts. The variance requested seeks relief, misspelled by the way, from the minimum 50% natural area requirement as well as the 40% maximum lot requirement. So what we're saying is, aren't we saying that if there is there is this building built or added, that the 50% will no longer hold, correct? Isn't that what
That's
we're
correct.
saying? Right. So we're really talking about two aspects of a variance.
Correct.
Yes. Okay, but we hadn't really said that, I don't think, as we were discussing here and asking questions.
They are related, though. They're
Yes.
very closely related and not so distinct that I think that it would cause any kind of a notice problem. So I think we can proceed to consider it. Or then.
But, okay.
If we go to Mr. Rosenblum's letter, he's got 40.9 and 50.3.
Right.
And I think those are the 2 points you're raising, Edie. And I guess,
Yes, yes.
are we all in agreement that that's what the request is? Okay.
other questions, Mark?
Just back to Corey and the FAR. Could Mr. Rosenblum not put a ceiling in to satisfy the FAR situation and bring the ceiling height to the 6.6?
I think that's, they did, I'll let you guys speak, but
Yes, correct.
Could, right? So there's an
And-
easy remedy for that.
And I also,
relatively
I
easy.
haven't calculated or done a floor area ratio calculation on the house.
Right.
So I can't say with certainty or not if they even have, they might have the numbers for it. I don't know since I haven't done a calculation yet.
Yeah, that wasn't an issue for you to consider, right?
No.
Yeah,
that's-
yeah, right, right.
I understand. That was my only
Understand,
question. Thank you.
understand.
go ahead, Jan.
Okay, I will just, share that everybody in Rehoboth wants a shed. And everybody has, a valid reason for wanting a shed. I would like to have a shed, frankly, but we don't, and we can't. So we have a bike pad, a bike, rack in our driveway, and we put the bikes in there, and we lock them up, and we have a tarp that we put over that you get from Empire, bike tarp, and then in the winter, we put a big tarp over the thing, and because our kids like to ride bikes when they come visit. So our lawnmower is in the outdoor shower. If you walk around my neighborhood, which is not, it's the opposite side of town from you, what you will see is exactly what we have. Bike racks in the driveways or in the front yard with the bikes in it. Sometimes people have them on their porch, but that's not feasible for you all. So I would find it very difficult to grant this variance, and I will say that right up front, because I can tell you there are so many people who would like to have a shed and can't have one. And it is just what it is. I have a friend who built a house, and they, instead of a 5th bedroom, they have a downstairs room that has their washer and dryer and shelves, and they pull their bikes in there. And it's a side door, and it's ground level, and they just pull their bikes in there. That was choices they made when they built their house. So anyway, that's...
Okay,
May I respond? I
Yes,
do
you may.
understand that there is a fear that this sets a precedent, but I would argue that the applicable precedent here is the variance process. And we have submitted for a variance because of the practical difficulties.
But I, frankly and honestly, the Board of Adjustment doesn't establish precedent, so it's not an issue.
okay, I have some questions. How often do you visit Rehoboth Beach?
We are here most of the year, quite honestly.
Okay,
I work virtually, so I work from here most of the year.
okay. And when I'm driving, asking questions going towards the exceptional practical difficulty, were you the builders of this house?
We were not.
You were
bought
not?
it- We bought it spec. It had already
Okay,
been built when we
okay.
purchased it.
Okay, because I noticed the final survey was, what, 2019?
Correct.
So
We bought it in 20.
you bought it in 20. Okay, and can you describe, I mean, we see the view looking down of the building layout. Bedroom layouts, is there an elevator in the house? Access to the basement, so nothing, okay. Is the basement finished?
The part of the basement is finished, part of it is unfinished. There is no elevator going up and down.
Okay.
And
And-
from the basement to the backyard where you have to bring the mower up, lawn equipment, bicycles, it's a steep stairwell that you have to kind of contort yourself, and it has one of those, the doors, the two doors.
Bilko doors, I think?
What are those called?
Bilko doors, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Wizard of Oz doors.
yeah,
Bit of Oz doors, that's what I thought.
okay. All right, so you did not build it, you bought it, just kidding. And the basement height, 6'6", or is it larger?
Yeah, you have to duck, yes.
It's a Rehoboth,
yes.
Rehoboth
Yes,
basement.
the Rehoboth basement.
Not if it has an outdoor exit, isn't it?
This is a bit of a tangent, but as it is defined as a basement, it needs an emergency escape and rescue opening. And that's building code section. So whether it's 6'8" or 6'6", we still define them as non-habitable basements here in Rehoboth. And as such, they're not a crawl space. So two of the main things that they need are smoke and carbon detectors and emergency escape and rescue openings, which could be a window well or a Bilko or a basement exit of some kind.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
My wife did want me to mention one thing in response to the keeping the bicycles outside. Hers is an e-assist bicycle, and you may not keep those outside.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Rose.
It's an e-assist bicycle,
You mean
which
it's
is not
electric
allowed.
bike? Is that what you mean?
An assist. I have to pedal, but I can't ride a regular bike because of my,
So
We have to
what we
swear.
typically do is have one witness speak at a time, and
I'm sorry.
we would very much like to hear from you. So you're going to get an opportunity to speak, and then when this question and answer session is over, we'll invite you to supplement the testimony that your husband's given. And we'll swear you in at that time, and that's how we'll do it.
Okay. Have you explored any other alternatives for bike and mower storage that would, that you could discuss with Corey or Matt? Have you done anything other than a shed, any exploration?
We have not, no. We did submit a permit earlier, as you saw, but we didn't explore other options.
Okay. I think they are all of my questions. Anyone? Go back to Bill, Jan? Edie, Mark? Okay.
No more question?
All right.
Miss, you want to hear from Ms.
Yes, please.
I just wanted to specify that my bicycle.
We'll swear you in.
The way we do it is that's okay, that's all right. I promise
always-
you're going to get this thought
That
out.
happens every time.
You're going to get this thought out, I know it. So what we do is we just simply ask for your name and address, and then I'll administer the oath.
My name is Robin Rosenblum, and I live at 17 Stokely Street.
And do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, so you can proceed now with your testimony.
I'm sorry, I simply wanted to respond to what you were saying about the, leaving your bikes outside. I have to have an electric assist bike. It doesn't go on its own. I have to pedal. But the only kind of bike I can use because of my tendonitis in my lower extremities is an e-assist bike, and it weighs a ton. And it can't be left outside.
Can the battery be removed from the bike?
Yes.
It can? Okay.
Okay.
So any other questions?
Any other questions for the applicant?
And
And
then the public.
anyone from the public wish to speak? Yeah, let's make sure it's on.
You know the routine now, right?
Yes. Amy Evans, I live at 15 Stokely Street in Rehoboth Beach.
Ms. Evans, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. I just wanted to say we're neighbors of the Rosenblums, and we approve of this structure being added to their property. We've seen the struggles they've had trying to take their bikes up from their garage and his issues with bringing the lawnmower up, and just wanted to be here to support them with this effort.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Any other questions? Okay, at this point, we're going to close down the public part of it, and then as a board, we will deliberate, discuss this. So I'm going to open it up to the board for your thoughts and opinions. We'll start with you, Mark.
I think this falls in my opinion, to a clear disability, and I think they've proven their disability by bringing their doctor's letters. And because of that, I feel that they've probably met the criteria that we look at in every way, and I would tend to vote, or I would lean towards yes, particularly since they have no complaints from any neighbors to the negative. And again, as I said, they have ample medical proof of what they're claiming.
Edie, thoughts?
Well, I'm going to be very different from Mark. As we know, we vote on a property. It doesn't matter who owns it. If we grant a variance, it's with the property ad infinitum forever. And so we can't be looking just at a certain set of owners or a certain set of circumstances. We have to look at the property and the zoning code. When I look at our criteria, the quick check, I believe they have met 1 through 3 without a problem. Criteria 4 is where I have a hang-up. I do not believe they're meeting it at all. This request comes from an applicant's want and their convenience. I understand their medical situation, and I do feel for it. However, their difficulty is routine. It's not exceptional, and it stems from the applicant's perceived hardship. The Board of, as we said, the Board, or as I said, Board of Adjustment grants variance for the property, not the people, and the variance goes with the property forever. It seems that when the house was built in 2019, that the maximum lot coverage was used to use every square inch of the property for the house itself, as many people do, and that's an option, without regard of any future wiggle room for anything to be built in addition. And that so I feel that granting the variance would impair the intent and purpose of our zoning statutes here in Rehoboth, and I agree with what Jan said, that everybody and their brother does want a shed. Yeah. We see that all the time, and we understand why. We understand there are reasons for it. We are interested in hearing from people and appreciate the fact that you've come to us, but that doesn't mean that we have to grant that.
Yeah, Edie, yeah, clearly, when I saw this layout and the square footage of this house, the builders of this house took it
out to
the maximum under the current code. That's why I asked whether you were the builders of this house. So, yeah. Jan?
Yeah, I've already expressed, I think, how I feel.
How you feel?
I haven't
Okay.
changed my mind. Thank you.
Look, I think it's very close for the reasons that everyone has said. I don't know whether to draw the line. We are talking tenths of a percent. You know, each, you know, you go over 2/10, and then why not over 3/10 or 4/10? On the other hand, I do understand the issues that the Rosenblums have raised in terms of the use of the ability to use the property, you know, given the way that the basement is set up. It's very close, and we've dealt with all sorts of issues like this, both on the commercial side and on the personal side. I'll tell you, I think that there's a tendency here to give more freedom on the commercial side than on the personal side, from what I can see. We've given a number of variances for people to, you know, use more of their property for serving tables and stuff like that. I'm a little concerned about that. I understand exactly what Jan and Edie are saying, that once you start down this road, where do you draw the line? But I'm inclined to grant this because I do think that that they've demonstrated the exceptional need given the doctor's letters. I am impressed by the lack of opposition from neighbors. I realize that I heard you, Jan, that you don't know where to draw the line on this. You know, but on the other hand, we're doing this on the commercial side. We let people, you know, there are other limitations. I realize nothing binds us on each decision, but on egg, we said, fine, take another 300 or 400 square feet and use it for a serving. And we didn't say, well, gee, then why doesn't everybody then get 1,400 square feet or 1,500 square feet? So I recognize the issue on that where you draw the line, but I do think that they've met it here with a combination of the medical needs and the lack of opposition, but I do absolutely understand the other viewpoint.
Yeah, we're not, go ahead, Jan.
I just want to add to the opposition. I truly appreciate Mrs. Evans' comments, but frequently people who live around would rather not say anything at all if they're opposing it, because they have to live next door on a 50 by 100 lot. And I mean, I had a call from somebody who did oppose it. So.
Yeah, but we can't,
But that's-
we can't
I know.
bring that in.
All I'm saying is
Yeah.
we can't do that. So people typically don't.
So my thoughts on this, when I was going through the material, quick check items 1 and 2, as Edie said, very easy. But I kind of got hung up on quick check item number 3, and quick check number 4, with the exceptional practical difficulty with the medical reasons I fully believe in. Where I started staring at it with number 3 is, we have residential codes to make sure that our city residential properties do not look like the commercial district. Otherwise, everyone would build 50 by 100. And why do we do that? Makes good neighbors, seriously increases the value of the property. So what's been going back and forth in my mind is quick check item number 3. And, if we grant the variance, are we adding on? Now, I do know the property, you have the older property to the west side of your property is an old, large garage building. So, I mean, they are right up to the property line. That's kind of where I've been struggling with this. So, at this point, is there any other deliberation among ourselves, or I'll seek a motion from someone?
I'd make a motion that we approved it based on the facts that were presented today.
Okay, anyone second that?
I'll second it.
Okay, and now let's go down for a vote.
Yes?
No.
To me, yes with your reasons, Mark.
Yes, for the reason stated earlier that I believe that there is a handicap that has been presented here and that there is no opposition from the neighbors.
No, because the handicap is on the owners, not on the property. And I believe, if I'm looking at quick check here, by granting it, we're impairing the intent and purpose of the zoning plan and zoning regulations and adding to what I call the creep of this, and the creep of that, and the creep of something else. That I look at our job as trying to hold the line without being totally totalitarian. But I cannot vote you to accept the variance.
Okay, thank you. Bill?
I'll vote in favor for the reasons stated earlier. I believe it qualifies for the quick check and that they have met the standard for the exceptional practical difficulty.
Jan?
No, for the reasons stated earlier, I don't believe they've met the quick check exceptional practical difficulty. And also, I'm very concerned about creep.
Okay, comes down to me. I mean, I wish alternative solutions were investigated for the bikes and for the mowers. Like I said, everybody in the city does that. I am going to vote in favor of the variance based on the overriding medical conditions, but also knowing what's on the property to your west side is big. And again, I think that I don't know if we have to say this for Corey, is it contingent that it does not increase the FAR and the pad is not, meets underneath. Am I allowed to put a contingency on that?
So I did want to clarify that the pad cannot be any larger than, or is the pad required to be larger than the shed in terms of a footprint?
For safety?
Is it?
Not necessarily, no, but the dimensions of the square footage that you allow in the variance will be held during plan review of the submission.
So the applicant's asking for 6 by 8, right? So I think there's no reason why the pad below the shed couldn't be restricted to 6 by 8, is that right?
That's correct, so long as you have full bearing from the bottom plate to the foundation, or the slab in this case.
So is that a condition we have to put on this?
No, that would be done through building, not zoning review.
For you guys take care of that,
There's
so.
one stipulation, not one stipulation, but there's one thing that, there's a gas code in here. There's a G marked on the survey as an underground and mounted propane tank. And per NFPA 58, no building can be within 10 feet of that propane tank. So I'm going to take this shed location as a rough location.
Okay.
And it will be moved to allow for that.
I was wondering about it in the photographs.
What about the trees? There's not much of a tree, but there is a tree. There's not much of a backyard, much landscaping, just 3 little trees.
If the variance is approved for the lot coverage in the natural area, they will still be held to comply with all other
Tree codes.
and zoning and building codes.
Got it. Okay, well, this is approved. Thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's move on to our second case today, 17 Park Avenue.
Can I state on the record, I had Mr. Burton rebuilt our house several years ago, had a long-term, year-and-a-half relationship with him, no ongoing financial relationship. I am comfortable that I can.
You are comfortable? Okay.
Participate, but I wanted to put that on the record as well.
Okay, thank you, Bill.
Maybe I should add something. If it's the same Mr. Burton who has a wife named Ricky and a son who went to Mercersburg, then I actually, right, I've never met him, but I have met his wife and son.
Okay, Mark?
I don't know the man. I've never met him.
Thank you. But I'm going to first, before we move into the case, I'm going to turn the microphone over to our counsel, Mr. Townsend.
Thanks. Okay, so along the same lines of conflicts, I unfortunately will have to recuse myself from any involvement in this application due to a prior professional association with the applicants themselves. So this board is going to endeavor to adjudicate this application with me or without assistance from counsel. And should it become their determination that assistance from counsel is required, in all likelihood, there'll be a tabling of this application until a substitute counsel can be arranged. Last thing I'll say is don't get used to conducting business without me. I hope you struggle some.
I want to ask the board first. You guys, I'm from Philadelphia, I always say guys. Everyone okay with proceeding?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Fred. Okay, again, we will apply the quick check factors that Delaware law recognizes as guidance for the Board of Adjustment. I'm not going to go over all of them again. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the city to make their presentation.
This is the building inspector's report for 17 Park Avenue. The applicant's Randy Burton from Burton Builders, representing the owners Mary Joel and John James O'Connell III. The nature of the request: the applicant is seeking a variance to City Zoning Code 270-26 side yards. The purpose of the application is to allow for the constructed portion of the addition encroaching the side yard to remain. The property is located at 17 Park, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 17 Park Avenue, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, and it is situated in the R1 residential district. The property is listed in Sussex County records as tax map number 334-14.09-170.00. The property is a 100-foot by 100-foot lot with an existing primary structure and an existing accessory structure. Application background information. According to the documents submitted by the applicant, the existing single-family dwelling was constructed in the 1930s. The applicant sought a building permit for an addition and major renovations to the existing dwelling and minor renovations to the accessory building. The applicant's building permit was approved June 14th, 2022, after a lengthy review process in which time the newly proposed side yard setbacks were identified and agreed upon under Exhibits F, G, and H. The surveys provided by the applicant identify inconsistent distances between the northeast exterior wall portion of the main dwelling to the property line abutting Lot 15. These distances vary between 10.9 feet and 11.1 feet. The distance used on the approved proposed conditions survey, Exhibit H, uses the distance of 11 feet. The variance is requested. The applicant is seeking relief from the following provisions. Rehoboth Beach Zoning Code 270-26 side yards, which states 2 side yards shall be provided on every lot as prescribed in the following table. Under District R1, there shall be a minimum width on one side yard of 6 and a minimum width of 16 that has a note here that states when the width of a lot exceeds 52.5 feet and the lot area exceeds 5,250 square feet, the minimum aggregate total of both side yards shall be the product of multiplying the applicable minimum aggregate total of both side yards by the lesser of either the quotient obtained by dividing the width of the lot in feet by 50 or the quotient obtained by dividing the area of the lot in square feet by 5,000. In Exhibit C, existing conditions boundary survey plan by Foresight Services dated March 16th, 2023, shows the new construction of the dwelling addition has created a side yard encroachment of 0.2 feet, which is 2.4 inches, at the southwestern most portion of the addition, which gradually reduces into zoning compliance over a distance of approximately 9.9 feet. In Exhibit D, under construction as-built survey by Foresight Services dated June 20th, 2023, shows the new construction of the dwelling addition has created a side setback encroachment of 0.4 feet, which is 4.8 inches at the southwestern-most portion of the addition, which gradually reduces into zoning compliance over a distance of approximately 13.4 feet. A conclusion, the new construction portion of the main dwelling was approved as zoning compliant, showing a minimum distance of the property line abutting lots 21 and 23 to be 21 feet, as shown in Exhibit H. This approved distance was set at a minimum of 21.0 feet. The surveys submitted for review by this board have shown to be inconsistent in precision. However, they are consistent in the fact that the new addition has encroached the side yard setback area.
Corey, how do surveys change from March 16th to June 20th? The building doesn't move.
I have seen surveys.
Is this common?
It is, as well as with, not just with setbacks in a, you would think in a two-dimensional distance, but with three-dimensional with elevations too. Because if they don't take those elevation shots in the exact same position over a certain period of time, there's natural bevels in the road on concrete. And the same thing is with these setbacks.
That's it, just interesting aspect. Okay, thank you. Questions for Corey?
Now, when did everyone realize that there was a problem here? That's what I'm trying to understand, is when this arose.
I believe that was after the survey came back. These numbers are so close that you would never be able to tell with the naked eye. And the survey that was produced by Foresight Services dating March 16th showed an encroachment. I can't speak on behalf of the applicant, but getting another survey in such a close time proximity after that, as a few months, meant that they might have asked to reshoot to see if that was an actual accurate measurement.
Other questions for Corey? You want to proceed
Corey,
to the applicant?
Just one quick one, Corey. Is it, other than shaving off a few inches, is there any other alternative? I mean, is there any way to fix this, survey-wise? No, it's probably the
Well,
answer. But I just wondered.
where the shots are taken from, it depends on the surveyor who goes out and where they place their laser in exactly the space that they position that laser to ping off of the structure. So there's going to be natural variations with
That's what
basically everything a surveyor does.
And I
and they
did
get the
notice,
best that they can.
I did notice in your correspondence between you and the builder, there was a lot of, I think the word you guys used, there I go again, guys. You used was inconsistencies in the property line. Is that true?
That's correct.
Yeah, so there's a lot of, we're not sure.
Yes, there's, in any cases like these, it's always done with a understood implicit plus or minus. There's an error rating, just as a police officer, if they would go to try to gauge how fast the car is going, there's a plus or minus in an error reading.
Okay.
But what I have to go off of, and what I go off of anyways with every case that comes before me with a final as-built, as well as the surveys that come in for proposed construction conditions, I rely on that professional land surveyor's signed and sealed stamp.
Right.
That the distances and the elevations that they're showing, along with the lot coverages, they're all attesting to with their professional, stamp.
Very good.
And we didn't catch it till it was completed. There wasn't a survey done or a check done when the foundation was placed.
The foundation, I believe, was in place, was good, but the house was built more than what the foundation was, and I think there's some photos in here that show that the house goes beyond where the foundation
Let me
was.
re-ask that question. At foundation pour or stakeout, do we require a survey? Does the city require a survey at that point when the foundation
Yes,
is?
that's part of the sill plate inspection.
Okay, and at that point, it was not discovered that it was in the encroaching into this setback.
That's correct. I don't have it with me, but that inspection was approved.
Okay, and that was still Growler at that point, not Foresight.
I'll have to, I don't have that
But
information.
we can
on
let
me.
the applicant, when he comes up.
I have a couple.
The
No,
foundation,
you-
but
you
the
finish.
foundation, on this same, I don't know, but thank you, the foundation was in compliance, correct?
That's correct. There's
And
two
then
things
there
that.
was an overlap, yeah.
There's two things that we check at sill plate inspection prior to when framing can commence. One is if they're doing a basement, that they want to take an exclusion from the floor area ratio or the 1,000 square foot credit.
Right.
They can be no higher than 3 feet from center line of road. And then we check the boundary placement of where the foundation wall has
That's
been
what Barry
poured
was
or
asking,
the
right,
block has
yeah.
been laid.
That's all, thank you.
Okay. Edie?
Yeah, it seems to me, a couple of you've been asking, when did things seem to be going wonky? And it's hard to determine that exactly. I mean, growers survey looked one way, and then another one looked another way. But in these emails, it seems as if people had the idea that there could be a problem. If I'm looking at Burton Builders on Thursday, April 13th, asking for a verification, and then Corey, you said, Joe, please see the call-out coverage was included with the approved plan set. Looks like the side yard was set to 21. You told him 21 rather than 20. And then Burton said, that works, thanks, Corey. But to me, that seems, and I know it's conjecture on my part, but it seems like at that point, April-ish, somebody thought that there might be a problem developing. And maybe that's why these other surveys were done. And Corey, if you can help me with this, with your presentation, I go to page 29 of what we were given, which is the first page of your building inspector report, Corey, and the very last line says exhibits F, G, and H, and they aren't clearly indicated as to what they are. I can guess, but I'm not sure.
Oh, my apologies. The
That's all right.
PDFs had been labeled as exhibits F, G, and F. I hadn't
Can you help me?
overlaid them.
Can
Yes.
you help me and tell me which exactly you're speaking of, so I'm sure we're looking at the
Yes,
same
ma'am.
thing? Oh, great.
Exhibit F is the email correspondence
Oh, okay.
with
Okay,
myself
just a
and
minute. Okay, just a minute.
Joe M. Burton
Okay.
Builder.
So Exhibit F is the email. Okay, got it?
And this is just showing there was some discussion on April 13th.
Right.
And these call back, Exhibit G is the survey that I had done a mock-up of in Bluebeam Review, and how that differs from Exhibit H is the one that has the approved stamp on it.
Okay, so the way I looked at it was, or the way, what my conjecture was that the one that said approved City of Rehoboth Beach with your little squiggly areas, that was H.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That has the
Okay.
approved
Okay, I'm going to write that
City
on
of
here.
Rehoboth Beach approved stamp on it.
In reading through this, it was a bit hard to follow. To be
I'll make
that-
sure,
that I was at the correct.
I will have these marked
Yeah.
on the actual,
And the
documents
one,
next
the one that's a very similar, but does not have the approved is G.
correct.
Is that correct?
Correct. And I included Exhibit G because that was the attachment that I had included in the email from Exhibit F.
Thank you for bearing with me here. And then maybe the other, my other questions aren't for Corey, because they're about these other inclusions in our packet, which I didn't ever see who the authors were, or, you know, or the other things.
I was going to say, can I stop you? Can we bring up and let the applicant speak, and then we
Absolutely.
can ask the questions in total?
Absolutely.
So,
Corey, one more question.
sure.
In looking at the pictures in the drawing, I just want to make sure I understand. There is one house, and what's back here is like the guest quarters, is that what that refers to?
It's
In
it's
other words,
all,
it's attached, but you can't see from this picture that it's attached.
that's correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's all
you
I
walk
wondered.
through a very, a somewhat large breezeway.
Okay.
That's conditioned space that goes into a larger
Okay.
opening.
Okay, that's all I wanted. I just wanted to make sure I understood how they work here.
So I have a question about the picture also. So what we're seeing is this building is actually this one back here? Is that correct?
That's correct. If
Okay,
you
so
see the
this is
brick.
a blow-up of, or closer view
Yes, ma'am.
of that.
Okay.
The brick landing and steps there go to that breezeway.
Okay, got it.
Oh, I
Thank you.
see. Yeah, that matches. And do we ask questions about this to Corey, or did somebody else?
Well, let's let the applicant speak,
Okay.
and then we can ask
Okay.
in total. So,
That's good.
sir? Yeah. I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it.
By statute, actually.
Your name and address, please, sir?
My name is Randy, Randy Burton.
And your address?
Usually happen. Not typically known to be short on words. Mr. Mendelis can verify that. My name is Randy Burton. My address is 117 Front Street, Lewis, Delaware. I am the owner of Burton Builder.
Okay, do you solemnly swear to or affirm that your testimony in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Okay, please proceed with your presentation.
Okay, I come here before this body today as a representative of Burton Builder, the builder of record for this property, and most importantly, on behalf of our clients, Mary O'Connell and her husband, Jamie O'Connell. And I also have counsel here in Mr. Tim Willard from Fuquay Willard and Ure. And Schaub, rather, and we'll let him sit here, although he's not sworn in.
I don't speak quite as long.
And
as
I want to make sure that it's known and understood by this body that the only reason that our client is not here representing as well is they are from Connecticut. Their son has just gone into the Naval Academy. They've been back and forth to this area quite a bit recently. It's not for a lack of concern on their behalf or a lack of interest in any way whatsoever. Amazingly, they've continued to place their confidence in me in spite of the situation that we find ourselves in here today. And to speak to that for just a second, as some of you know, and certainly some people in this room know, I've been building in Rehoboth Beach for 37 years. This is the first time I've ever come before the Board of Adjustments to ask for anything. Our reputation has been such of a level of quality, and we've relied on other professionals for many, many years. As Mr. Mendelis, who represents the city today, and Mr. Willard could tell you, this is the second time in 9 months that my firm has found themselves in front of a Board of Adjustments. Last time it was the city of Lewis's. I don't know how we have gotten to the point in professionalism in the world today that relying upon others to perform their job accurately and correctly. And by no means am I not taking responsibility for this ultimately, but I find myself operating in a world that's much different than it used to be, that you hire professionals to do something, you get a less than professional outcome, and then you have to be the person to sort it out, and there's no train of additional witnesses that show up to represent themselves. And that's kind of how we got here. So to answer some of the questions that have already been asked, these two documents that you were asking about, Miss, the first document that says variance submittal for relief from height requirements, what happened to bring us here, is drafted by Burton Builder and by myself.
Thank you.
The second document that you see after that, which says Rehoboth Beach Board of Adjustments variance squiggly mark 270-74C criteria, is drafted by counsel, Mr. Willard, and he can speak to that.
Thank you.
To that point, in the document that I drafted, what I attempted to do is to clearly outline in very factual terms how we came to need to file this application. And to fast forward a little bit to answer your question, it became apparent to me as the owner of the company, Joe Mullins, the correspondence that you referenced, is our director of operations. He is tending to the fires elsewhere today, or he'd be here, and I didn't realize that that email was going to be part of the record, or I would have made sure that he was here to be able to speak to it. But I can tell you that why that email was sent was because we had the walls up, the siding on the majority of this house, and we called for a survey because we were getting near completion, and we're a fairly proactive company. We wanted to make sure that everything was fine. And Joe comes to my office and says, Randy, it looks to me like we have an encroachment. I said, it's impossible. I mean, all the numbers add up. We were relying upon the survey that came from Mr. Grower on two different occasions. One that shows 10.9 feet to the right rear corner. Another one that shows 11.1 to the right rear corner. And then all of the numbers in our architectural plans, which also include, and I'll speak to that in a minute, the photographs that I provided that show the architectural details around the bottom of the house. Because if we measured only to the foundation, which I know, because I've built right to that mark with siding many, many times in this community without error, but if we measured to the foundation of this house, we would be talking about less than a half an inch of encroachment. But because of the architectural finishes of the house, which I'll also speak to, we're talking about 4 13/16 inches, going in a triangular manner back for 13.4 inches. So how we got here is that because I've made my way with a lot of precision over the years, we built this house right to the maximum setback, because our client empowered us to build a home that was representative of 17 Park Avenue when it was originally built. And that's, if you look at the photographs, if you've gone by the house, I think there are neighbors here and other letters that have been written. You know, that's kind of why we were hired. That's what we've done many times. I've never torn a house down in the city of Rehoboth Beach, and if somebody asked me to, I'd refuse the job. It's not what I do. I sit on the Historic Preservation Commission in Lewis because I'm passionate about saving these old houses. And this client hired us to do it, and if you look at the exterior of it, they have gone above and beyond to create a home that when we're finished I would defy anyone to tell me whether the house was built in 1932 or in 2023. And yet we find ourselves here with an error. It's a measurement error is what we're looking for. And I think we meet the criteria of what you refer to as the quick test. So when Joe Mullins came to me and said, look, we have an encroachment, I said, it's supposed to be 21 feet, but verify that with Corey, because we have a great working relationship with the City of Rehoboth building officials. He sent the email just to make sure before we started expending more money of our clients trying to chase down where the problem was, that we had a problem. We knew we had a problem. We knew that we were encroaching into the setback. We also knew that we had additional trims, and if you go to the third photograph of the pictures that I provided just today, you'll see my hand in the upper left holding a good old wooden scale ruler, and it shows that that trim, and if you go back one page, you'll see the lower photograph. That water table that goes around the house projects off of the foundation of the house 3 1/4 inches. So we're talking about a 1 inch. Without that, we're talking about a 1 inch increase. So the reason that there are multiple surveys is because we brought Foresight out in March. We asked Foresight to give us a survey so we knew exactly what we had. When they provided that survey to us, we contacted Corey, we got verification. I then asked them to go back out and tell me where the 21-foot occurs, right? Because that was the first thing that I needed to know. Where's the 21-foot occur? So that was 9 feet, 9 inches back. Interestingly, just like with Mr. Grower's surveys, who were not ordered by us, but we relied upon them because they were professionals. We've relied upon professional surveys. I mean, I've got surveys in my office from Jay Wingate's office from 1956 that are still accurate because they're houses that haven't moved since then. We relied upon those dimensions, and yet you can see by the 2 Grower surveys that there's conflicting information there. You then see it in the Foresight survey where the fence that shows that it's on the easterly property line is actually a foot off of the easterly property line when you get to the Foresight survey. But then you have Foresight come out, they do a dimension, and the encroachment says that it is 3.2 inches and terminates at 9.9 feet back. And when they come out and they redo the survey, they come out and they tell us, well, it's 4.13/16 or 4 13/16, and it terminates at 13'4". At which time I requested a meeting with the City of Rehoboth, with the building officials, both Matt and Mr. Janis and Corey, because I knew that some years back the city had allowed for an executive variance process. I only knew that it had been allowed. I didn't know what the parameters of it was. I had never asked for it. Sat down with them and quickly learned that they didn't have the authority to issue a variance, and we'd have to go through this process.
Mr. Burton, when was that meeting, please, approximately, that you're speaking of?
It was in early June, I believe.
Early June.
It was just after, well, I could tell you, based upon the most current Foresight, it was within days of receiving the final, what is in your exhibits. It must have been sometime around June 20th. I could look back at my emails and verify that, but, and we made the application immediately upon, we consulted with our client, we consulted with counsel, and then we went about, I sent an email to Ms. Womack, asked her, what's the process, what do we got to go through? And then we made the application, Mr. Willard and I. So that's what that big, long, 2-page document basically says. And I believe, and Look, I'm an open book, I always have been. Those who know me would tell you that. I believe that with maybe a bit of a stretch, but I believe that we meet all of the quick check for this variance. I believe that when you consider the specific lot in the zoning district, it is specific to that lot. It is not shared by adjacent property owners. I believe that there is no detriment to the public good that comes from granting this. I definitely believe that the benefits of granting this variance substantially outweigh the detriment, especially the detriment to the neighborhood, because the alternative is to shave 2.6 square feet off of the side of a house. I'm not even talking about the financial aspect of it. I'm talking about the continued disruption of Park Avenue for another 4 or 5 months, because the house is nearly finished. It will be occupied within the next 30 days. And I believe that this does nothing to impair the intent or purpose of the comprehensive plan for the city of Rehoboth by granting this variance. Yes, ma'am.
You just said you have to shave how much off this house if you had?
The triangle, so the encroachment is a triangle, Ms. Kunisi, so it starts at 4 13/16 in the front left corner. If you look at the photographs that I gave you, and this is the reason that we have the 2 different ones, this corner, just the very corner of that trim, sticks 4 13/16 inches.
Okay, I thought you said feet before, and that's why it threw me
Well,
off.
but when it's 4 13/16 inches at that point, going back, and see, the house sits crooked because we added on to the house, because that's the way we used to build things. We weren't quite this fastidious about these inches. And I understand why we are, because there's got to be rules for everybody. But the house was built crooked on the lot. You can see that, right? Yeah. And we added on squarely to the out-of-square house.
So you're talking about running feet.
You're talking about running feet. You're talking about, we have a 4 13/16 running back in a northerly direction, 13.4, which naturally creates a triangle because the house is cocked.
Well, your 0.4 feet, which is 4 13/16 inches, is 0.4 feet. I'm in total agreement with you. Times 13.4 feet, which is your running feet, gives 5.36 square feet. And you're
Divided
saying,
by 2.
And you're right. And so you're saying you're
2 and
dividing by 2,
2.68.
triangular.
Correct.
So
Of encroachment.
of encroachment.
Of
correct,
encroachment.
Correct. Right.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, excuse me, but what I'm wondering, this isn't really for him, but why isn't the triangular shape mentioned like on the public notice or on some of this? Because so many of these things, for instance, if I go to the public notice and other things, 0.4 feet times 13 feet, 2.68 square feet. I mean, anybody who knows anything about math knows that doesn't, that's not correct. So I would think you would say, I'm not dissing about what you've got here, but I'm saying why aren't we more specific? Why aren't we saying that although that's 5.36 square feet, we're only talking about a half of that?
Half of that.
You see what I'm saying? And that kind of math is repeated in different ways throughout a lot of this
Yeah,
information.
I don't have an answer on.
Yeah, I don't know
how they
either. I don't know.
calculated
Well,
for that.
another thing is that also if you were to take measurements, I mean, and I know we have to have a point, right?
Yeah.
But if you were to take measurements along the the easterly boundary line, you would not have the encroachment to the same. You follow what I'm saying?
Yep.
Because of the angle going like this,
Right.
as you get towards the front, it would diminish. But that's never been the way that Rehoboth has allowed you
Right.
to, you have to pick a number.
Right.
And Corey, who does an amazing job, and I'm not just blowing smoke at him, he really is a great asset to the city. And I went over all of that many times. it isn't like we walked in with a set of plans for this beautiful home and said, this is what we're going to build, and you're going to let us. You know, we had a collaborative effort for quite some time to get to what we could build. And then we found ourselves in April with something because of errors in other people's work, which ultimately is my job to check, but I'm not a professional surveyor, right? So does that mean that I have to be the mason's son, the surveyor's son, and all of that? So
Just to make sure the record is clear, the record does say, Edie, that it is 2.68. It doesn't explain
I know.
the math part.
know.
But,
I know, it-
and the triangular, but I just want to make sure that,
But
that
anybody
it's
who's-
clear that the record.
Is
that-
incorrect.
that-
Is
No, I'm saying
requested.
that the notice
Oh.
says 2.68.
But it
says-
doesn't, but it doesn't explain how.
Why, right? So it doesn't get into the advanced math that we're
Oh.
doing here, and algorithm theory and all that, but it does, I just want to make sure that it's clear that the notice to the public does say
Yes.
2.68.
I understand.
Question to Mr. Burton. I'm trying to get, towards the practical difficulties here. Your conversations between you and the homeowner, a beautiful home, give us some thoughts, why did we take it right? I mean, it's legally, you're allowed to go up to the setbacks, but why did they approve you to take that house or the addition right to the setback? I mean, why was no tolerance? Especially, well, I guess the emails going back and forth was after you started the foundation, right?
No, well,
Or is it
no,
before?
no, Corey and I had considerable correspondence prior to the construction beginning.
Right.
I guess the best answer, Mr. Brandt, is that I've had the privilege of building some of the finest houses in this town, and we've built them right to the nth degree, and never had a problem with them. And so when we designed it, it was our design. The chain of numbers that come across the back of the property give us allowance to be able to exactly put that house where it was.
Okay, your design or the
No,
homeowner's telling you take it?
No, I'm the frustrated architect here
Okay.
as well. So we are a design build contractor. We have the great fortune of people putting their trust and confidence in us to design things that work. And we were really looking at all of the scale and proportion of the rest of the building, because we added this wing onto the house. The ground floor of the house is very similar to what was there, and then the second floor is completely different than what was there. But the screen porch across the front, the rear of 75% of the building is as it was, and then we added that breezeway and the space.
and the wing.
And it really was about the scale and proportion architecturally of each of those spaces so that they were appropriate.
Okay, again, looking into exceptional practical difficulties here, it was not the homeowner directing you.
No,
It
sir.
was, okay, thank you.
No.
Okay.
I have another question for you, sir. On your, the write-up that you prepared, the second to last paragraph, foresight then provided, is in that paragraph.
Oh, on the first page, the second to the
Yes,
last on the
yes,
first page?
Yes, yes, sir. My question is, and maybe I'm misunderstanding here, but when I add 11.1 and 20.7 right there as of March 16th, I get 31.8. That's not 32 feet.
No, that's correct. Yeah, that's when the problem was discovered.
Okay.
You okay, Edie, or can I move on? Another question?
That's all right.
Okay, how do we know the foresight survey is correct? If, I mean, what I'm getting at is Grauer. I'm assuming Corey, they are registered to work in the city.
That's correct.
And whether they're in the future, that's up to you. But, it sounds like 2 foresight surveys, 1 Grauer, we have 3 different answers. If we went out there tomorrow with Foresight or someone else. I just wonder, after hearing this inconsistent, it sounds like it's very difficult to get this property line for some reason.
Well, one of the things is and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too far, Mr. Brandt, but historically in the town of Rehoboth, surveys have been a challenge. And back in the days when we had just Wingate and Eschenbach, and we didn't have the sensitive equipment that we have today, and we had Coast Survey. They were the two primary surveyors other than Kemp out of Georgetown for years and years and years, for generations. Rehoboth was laid out with ropes, okay? We all know that if we know anything about the history of Rehoboth. And those ropes were left on the ground. And whether it rained or was moist like it is today, or it was hot and sunny like it was last Tuesday, that rope could be 50 feet, it could be 49 feet, 10 inches, it could be 50 feet, 2 inches. And so when all of the newer generation of surveyors started coming along, with their more precise, the United States military created GPS for us. So now we have this great, very accurate, precise measurement. And we started having many, many problems with surveys not closing. Mr. Mandalis could speak to you about it. Mr. Townsend could speak to you about it. And so now they've gone back and they've tried to correct all that GIS information for the city of Rehoboth. So they're relying on that GIS information. Maybe Mr. Grower still has old equipment. I don't know. But what I know, and I speak to that here, is historically as a company, and they've laid out subdivisions for me, they've laid out single-family homes for me. Our go-to survey company is Foresight Survey these days. We find them to be the most consistently accurate, but it doesn't mean that they don't make mistakes. And I think your building inspector could speak to that as well.
All right, thank you. I'm good with that.
Bert, may I ask a question? If you had to fix it, how would you fix it? How would you shave off that lamp? What would you have to do? Take off the siding, take off the framing? How would you fix it?
The only way to fix that house is to take 5 inches off of the entire side of the house.
Foundation also?
Yes, from the footing, well, not the footing, but the brick facade that's on there, the block foundation, it's actually poured concrete foundation, the plates, the framing, the siding, the shower plumbing, the electric, the windows, the tongue and groove finished wood inside of the whole house, because not only does this house look like a 1930s cottage on the outside, it does on the inside as well. The interior finishes are just as intricate and detailed as the rest of it. So it would, and you can't just shave I doubt my client would accept it, and I, as a builder, wouldn't even attempt to think that you could just shave the triangle off. You'd have to take 5 inches at least, if not more, off of the whole side of the house, which would take months to do, frankly. And the nice neighbors who are here to support us today would be disrupted for that additional time as well.
Question for Corey. On the plans, Exhibit D, the chimney does not come in the aggregate in the side yard setback, right? The 10.3 inches?
The chimney has an allowance of up to 2 feet as a structure in the required yard area.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
The roof evidently does also, because the roof is far over.
Yep.
That's correct. Yeah, those are all listed in our special exceptions in our zoning code.
Other questions? Edie, Mark,
Not at this point.
Bill? No. Dan? Okay, anyone from the public wish to speak today?
Mr. Chair, could I address the board?
So I am so sorry.
Or they say I'm not a potted plant, but I'll
Do we need to swear lawyers or not?
Yes, we do, right? No?
I just asking.
I'm getting assistance.
Twice.
See, Fred, we do need Fred.
What Mr.
Thank you.
Mandalis would say, yeah. Mr. Mandalis has sworn at me.
But most lawyers would not need to swear, but Mr. Willard, yeah,
Oh, no.
question of, nah.
Go ahead,
You
sir.
don't know me, obviously. I'll be brief. 'cause you've
And your
covered-
name,
Oh,
please?
it's Tim Willard. I'm with Fuquay, Willard, and Schaub. We have an office here in Rehoboth, or just out by Big Fish. And we have an office in downtown Lewis, and we're on the Circle in Georgetown. My bar number.
It's not in the city of Rehoboth.
No,
Mr.
it's not,
Miller.
but it's got a Rehoboth, it's got a Rehoboth
I will
address.
just point that out to you.
Mr. Fuquay lives here, yeah.
I know he does.
My bar number is 2824.
You need to swear him then.
No, Fred said we don't have to swear him in.
You're not going to have to swear, okay?
We supposedly answer to a higher God.
Me too.
I said supposedly, but no, I'll try to be brief because you've covered some of the notice, or some of the elements, and I'm not, and you're on the numbers, really on the numbers, so you know what the variance is for. The 13 feet run at 4.4 inches and the 2.68 is where you're at. So I won't talk so much about them. Your code, as I see it, it's section 270-74C. You talk a lot about quick check. We all know quick check, Fred, and that's sort of the foundation of variance law. And your code tracks it similarly, but I'll touch on each one of those, the code and the quick check as well. The variance, this is 270-74C. The variance will not be contrary to the public interest. First, you got to say, well, what is the public interest? And I think you all have touched on that a little bit just in your conversation, that it's consistency. And I would argue, based on the facts that you've heard on the record, this is not a creep case. It's unique for various reasons that we'll get into. And I think the public interest also of your variance law is to recognize when exceptions are called for. And that's in the public interest too. That's why you have that law. So it's both consistency and public interest. And as I think two members have already said, you don't set precedents, but you do have sensitivity to creep, and I don't believe this is a creep case, nor is it a creepy case. The second one is special conditions or exceptions. Situations exist, and as already been pointed out, it's not to the individual, it's to the property. In this case, we have the history of the surveys being unusual, which I think highlights some of the problems that Randy was talking about. Might be hard to survey because some of the boundary lines. What's also very unique about this property is how the original house was situated. Maybe not unique for the 1932, but you try to square your houses with your property lines in today's world. This wasn't, which led to, the deviation in a triangle on the other side. And I think that's somewhat unique to the property itself. And the boundaries might be difficult and hard to pin down, at least the history of the maybe not so much the incompetence, but the history of the survey shows there was some struggle in getting it right, which I think speaks to the special conditions or exceptional situations. Number three, a literal interpretation of any zoning ordinance, code, or regulation will result in unnecessary hardship or exceptional practical difficulty, which is sort of the heart of quick check, and I think Randy's spoken to that. I had the good fortune of going to see the house because I had time to kill. I live in Lewis, and shave it is not a good word for what would have to happen to take it out. I imagine it'd be months or weeks of construction and planning, and I think it would also speak to the difficulty of it. Would be actually the architectural integrity in the house itself. There are beams that look like a 1930s house that you would see in a typical Rehoboth cottage, and I think it would be a hardship for sure to change that as it stands. And based on the sort of de minimis nature of the intrusion, I don't think the balance is in that favor to try to shave it off. The spirit of the ordinance, code, or regulation shall be observed. That's your number 4 in your 270-74C. And I think the spirit of the law is to ensure that all residential buildings, in this case, has space between them. Really, that's what it's all about for setbacks, right? And in this case, the intrusion is so mild that I don't think it offends the spirit of this law whatsoever. And I think as Randy, the frustrated architect he is, he designed some interesting houses. And I think when you said he didn't allow much tolerance, that that thing that juts out off of there, it doesn't take all the space. They didn't go the whole side, which they could have actually. So it was protecting that space. So again, I think that honors the spirit of the space rule for side setbacks, that they didn't go crazy on that side, crazier if you would be. Variances are exceptions to zoning laws that promote uniformity in land use planning, and that's the Lewis Nepa case that Glenn probably knows about. And I don't think this.
Speak into the microphone a
Oh,
little
I'm
bit.
sorry.
There we go.
That's just a case that talks about uniformity in the thing, and I don't think because of all the facts before you here today, the history of how they got here, plus the de minimis dimensional size, that it doesn't offend the spirit of the law whatsoever. Such relief may be granted without substantially impairing the intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance. My response is sort of similar there to what I've already said. The quick check, like I said, goes through the same thing, but in maybe a different. Justice Herman speaks of the nature of the zone and the character of the immediate vicinity, kind of the same things. I mean, park to me is just classic pines, historic, Rehoboth, and I think in no way that you must make that decision that this actually improves that that look, and I think Randy's testified to that character of the vicinity. And not to speak, I think somebody here has been patient. They want to also speak to how they feel about it. Quick check says, if the variance granted would, if it was granted, would it seriously affect neighboring properties? And I'll let the neighbors speak to that. I don't think it would, but that's just my opinion. And then quick check also is, if it's not granted, what would the unnecessary hardship or exceptional practical difficulty be? Again, that takes you back to what I already spoke about, and you've asked questions about. Mr. Burton spoke of the construction activity that's there. I must say that I was just there, and they're finishing up, and there must be 8 trucks out front and various kind of disruption, let alone some other things we've talked about, the exceptional practical difficulty of taking it from the roof down with everything that's already been put into it in relation to what it's doing, which is just talking about 2 feet, or 4 inches rather. So that's all I have as far as that.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Miller? No? Okay, anyone from the public wish to speak? Come on up. Your name and address, please?
Yes, my name is Tim Firmoil, and I live at 21 Park Avenue, which is the property adjacent to the property in question.
Okay, do you solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
And we, along with my wife and sister-in-law Penny, we own the property next door. We've submitted a letter, I don't know if you have it, through Ms. Womack, but I won't, well, maybe I should just read you the letter if you got it.
If it's short, yeah.
It is.
Okay.
Okay. Dear Mr. Brandt, we are in receipt of your public notice regarding the request for variance. We are the owners of the adjoining property located at 21 Park Avenue, which has been in our family for over 80 years. We are full-time residents currently, I believe the only ones on the block. We are writing to express our support for the granting of these variances. We're very appreciative of the efforts the O'Connells have made with the renovation to preserve the character of the neighborhood and keep it in the style. We hope a small measuring error, which we've heard a lot about, won't do anything to derail what we think is going to be a wonderful addition to the Pines. So as next-door neighbors, we don't feel that there's any negative impact on us at all, and appreciate the opportunity to be here. And I can speak to, yes, the disruption for a few more months would not be great. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you. Okay, anyone else? We good? Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, if there's no other questions from the board, we're going to close down the public session, and we will now deliberate amongst ourselves. And this, I think I'll start with Bill this time. Start the discussion.
Yeah, no, look, I think this is a an inadvertent error. It almost, if we could rewrite the code allowing administrative waiver, which I gather is what Randy was hoping he could have, this sounds like a classic case of that. I think in all these cases, we want to make sure that we are not having somebody intentionally violate the code and then come back and ask for forgiveness, and there's no evidence of that. This is, clearly a de minimis, using legal terms in terms of the amount that is encroached. So I'm comfortable that is exactly why there are variances allowed under Delaware law for situations like this, so I'm comfortable granting the variance.
Jan, thoughts?
As I am.
Any,
I
any
totally-
feedback? Okay.
No, I just, you know, it's interesting talking about surveys. On Oak Avenue, there are pipes at every corner. And Foresight measured that, and they're all accurate, all the way down. I don't know why they aren't in Park, but they are on Oak.
Thank you.
They're
Edie?
in the ground, I never saw them.
Yeah, but those
yeah.
are at the corner, Jan, so the problem here is
Well, I know,
yeah.
but if you were measuring from the corner,
you
the surveyor would have been,
as Corey said, yeah, if you're using all the right tools and you have it right balanced.
no, but
and-
I
and
just
all
was
that.
curious because I'm agreeing, okay? Don't argue with me, I changed my mind.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm in agreement with my colleagues. I think this is a result of something beyond the owners and the builders' control, and so that we should grant the variance.
And Mark, your thoughts?
I just want to point out that the roof goes beyond the 3 inches that we're worried about. So regardless of whether we give it or whether we didn't, the roof line is still closer to the neighbor's property line than this would be. So yes, I don't have any problem with it either.
Yeah, and my thoughts along this would, where I was going at, Mr. Burton, on the homeowners. Had they created the exceptional practical difficulty and told you to, go as, then I would have really struggled with number 4. But as it is, your mistake, the company, the building mistake, the survey mistakes, the practical difficulty would be the homeowners not getting a certificate of occupancy. So they clearly have an exceptional practical difficulty in my mind. So with that, I'm going to ask someone to make a motion today.
I move that we grant the variance as stated.
Okay. A
I'll second.
Okay, let's go for a vote. Mark, I'll go down with you.
Yes. for
And
the
your
rea-
reasons.
Yes, for the reasons stated, that there is an exceptional difficulty here, without doubt.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know
That was
if-
it, it was short.
I didn't know if you were finished,
I
Mark.
was finished.
Yeah, I vote yes as well. I think the quick check factors, criteria 1, 2, and 3 are met without a problem. I think 4, we've uber discussed, and who knows where the fault lies, if the word fault is correct. It seems that there is a softness to some of these surveys, even though we think that they should be hard facts, and that not to err is human. And so I think that we can't be holding something for this kind of a measurement that isn't the same measurement each time that was wrong, or not. See, I don't know what's right. I still don't know exactly what's right, but it was the differences.
I think the multiple errors helped this case.
Yes, the differences in the surveys, I think, only brought the problem home to me that there is a practical difficulty for the owner and the builder. So I vote to grant the variance.
Jan?
I vote to grant the variance for reasons stated.
Okay, Bill?
No, I support granting the variance for the reasons stated. I believe they meet all 4 of the quick check factors.
And I too agree with this. Quick check items 1, 2, and 3 easily were met. And quick check item 4, the exceptional practical difficulty was with the homeowner not getting their certificate of occupancy. I think it was an honest mistake. So with that, this passes unanimously. Hold on, and it is a beautiful house.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
All right, Fred, please come back up.
He goes back on the clock now?
Who's this guy? Who is this guy?
Who is this guy? All right, do we have any other business to take care of?
So much.
Okay, and
Do we have a meeting next month?
yes, we have 2?
Oh, and that's a Tuesday.
Right.
So are we okay on Tuesday at 2:30? Thank you, Ann, for getting us the room.
So the decision should be out in 30 days. I just wanted to make sure
okay,
that
yeah.
the written,
Okay.
but I guess they'll proceed and you'll conduct business as if they have their variance. I think is the way it works.
Okay, because they're acting under an active application, under a building permit, several right now. So the house isn't completed yet.
No, it's not. I mean,
No.
it's right.
And all honesty, I will still have to receive yet another as-built survey at time of final inspection. So, we'll see what where the numbers.
Okay,
Don't tell us about it. We don't want to hear anybody.
okay, what happens if it's different?
So it's going to be coming
I
from
mean, really,
Foresight.
really, I'm asking this question. We've granted a variance on a specific set of measurements. So what happens if the as-built is now different again?
I don't think it will be, and the reason, is that I don't, Kemp is actually who did our survey, which exactly matched Foresight's, which uses all kinds of lasers and everything. It's a whole different process now than it used to be in Wingate and the kind of old days. Would you agree?
Well,
I think it has more to do with where you start than it does. I think it has, the survey errors have a lot more to do with where you begin measuring. So all the surveyors would agree as to exactly where that house lies. The question is, where is that boundary line? And if you started measuring, because there are a lot of 50-foot lots in the city that if you measure them, they are not 50 feet.
Now, it depends if you start at the ocean side or if you start up here, the east or the west. We saw that in the planning commission all the time.
Right.
He was going to
The
support.
question you asked was good, because my natural inclination is if I get the survey back for the final inspection and it is equal or more zoning compliant, then I would approve that. But if they produce a third survey by Foresight now and it shows more non-compliance, I'm going to be at an impasse there to approve that survey. I don't know what they'll come back with.
So do they have to, do they come back? Yeah.
I know where you're going. and
Well, I
agree
mean,
totally.
can we not grant the variance necessary to accommodate that structure where it lies?
That's the way I see it, where it currently sits. I mean, the numbers are important, and I understand why you're focused on them, but I do think that their ask was a variance to allow the structure to sit where it's been
where it's
built.
been.
And I think you granted that.
I think the board is okay with that, right? I mean, it's not going to jump 10 feet.
It's not.
It's as,
Right.
as long as it's as represented on
So
the
do we say
file.
anything as presented today, or
I think we just approved the variance. We've approved the variance. As far as a final survey, that's not part of our business.
No.
We saw the variance, we approved the variance
As it is.
as it sits.
I mean, if they put an air conditioning unit in that,
Setback,
in that setback, that would not be authorized. But you've authorized the structure that's currently there
As
to
it's-
remain in place with
Okay.
its ornamental features. So you'll see when the writing
Yeah.
okay.
comes out. Yep.
All right. Thank you. I think we can make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. I'll do that. There we go.
I know, but I don't